All right. Do you go into work and dread seeing certain coworkers, maybe people who are unkind or just too demanding? Well, it turns out they could be harmful to your health. Joining us on the Kogo News Live line is the author of The Old School Advantage, Timeless Tools for Every Generation, Jim Whiddon. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. So now we know these people. Everybody knows these people, who they are. So how do you deal with these people? How do you deal with the negative effects of these toxic coworkers?
Well, the effects are one thing. How you deal with them directly is another, and I would talk about that. And it boils down, Ted, to communication, and I mean on a personal level. I think what's happened in our society and in the workplace is we've lost not only the desire maybe, but the skill to sit down with somebody and get to know them, is how we may have said it in old school parlance. And that means something as simple as, hey, what's your hometown? Tell me about your family. What are your hobbies? What are the stories of your childhood? Or who's your favorite team? As simple as that sounds, those are the keys to interpersonal communication and relationships. And what happens often in our workaday world where we're moving at such breakneck pace is that we don't take the time to build that personal rapport, which can head off toxicity in the workplace, either on a peer level or on a management level. People don't leave companies. They leave the people that work at those companies. And that, I think, is important for both workers and managers to understand.
Well, and here's another thing. How do these toxic people, and everybody knows who they are, how do they remain employed?
Well, probably because their supervisors don't fully know what's going on, and I say fully, that means they know to some degree. But there has to be an atmosphere where you've got to take the high road. If that's the first thing. You can't just be defensive because you've got a toxic coworker. You've got to go to them and try to get to know them, as I mentioned earlier. But then if that's impossible, you've got to go to the supervisor at some point. But here's the approach you take. You take the approach of, I think the behavior of my coworker is either hurting the company and or the bottom line of the company, in other words, our mission together, or it's hurting that person. You know what I mean? In other words, it's not about me who's being offended. It is about the person that is doing the offending. I want to help them, and that way it fosters empathy, and maybe you can move towards solving that problem.
So you mentioned maybe getting to know them, some small talk, where's your hometown, what's your favorite team, things like that. If that doesn't work, how do you remain calm in a high-stress work environment with these people around?
Well, you start or you try not to make direct comments or statements, and you ask questions, or you use phrases that are more innocuous. So instead of saying, you need to change, you could say, you might want to think about doing it this way. That phrase, you might want to, is much less offensive than you would. Or how about this? You're right, and, well, that word and builds a bridge in a relationship instead of just jumping on them with a direct statement. So these are all in the book. These are things we teach the companies coast to coast. They sound like they should come natural. Believe me, they don't. And that's the issue.
You're right. All right. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it. That is Jim Whiddon, the author of The Old School Advantage, Timeless Tools for Every Generation. You know those toxic people. Now you know how to deal with them.